Good morning, Doctor. I'm Jeffrey Tan Shih Jie, machine number 2616614. Today, I'll be presenting about one of the famous economists. He was once known as the American Keynesian, which is Alvin Harvey Hansen. Before I talk about Alvin Harvey Hansen, please allow me to brief through our whole chapter. There's a few economists like Alvin Harvey Hansen and Paul Samuelson help in improvising Keynes' approach precisely on macroeconomics theory. Hence, in our first two sections, we'll be discussing more about Hansen's and Samuelson's idea. Later on, we will be discussing about post-Keynesian economies. Post-Keynesian economics is a synthesis between Keynesian macroeconomics and neoclassical microeconomics. However, this theory not only has its flaws, it's also inconsistent with Keynesian's original idea. Soon, they came up with a new theory, which is named as New Keynesian Economics. This theory rejected the post-Keynesian economics theory and focused on Keynesian original questions such as why recession occurred in economy. So let's move on to Alvin Harvey Hansen. So who is Alvin Harvey Hansen? Alvin Harvey Hansen is born on 23rd August 1887 in Viborg, South Dakota, and passed away on 6th June 1975. He has been to Sioux Falls Academy for his high school, and later on, he has further his study at Yaletown College, and finally he finished his PhD at University of Wisconsin. He has been a lecturer at Brown University and University of Minnesota. He has published 3 books, which is Business Cycle Theory, Fiscal Policy and Business Cycle, and A Guide to Keynes. A Guide to Keynes has soon become famous to the graduate student because they have been using it to understand more about Keynes, the general theory. He pointed out that a mathematical error in Keynes' theories on money. He also used Keynes' work and its policy implementation on their fiscal policy seminar. Alvin Harvey Hansen also cooperated with Sir John Wilkes to produce the Higgs-Hansen synthesis. So what is the Higgs-Hansen synthesis? So 1 year after the general theory is published by the Keynes, John Richard Higgs published an article named Mr. Keynes and the Classic, a suggestion interpretation. In that article, he explained about the Higgs-Hansen model. Basically, Higgs pointed out that Keynes' theory of interest rate and equilibrium income is indeterminate. But why? In figure 1, you can see that Keynes states that the interest rate can be determined by liquidity preference. What is liquidity preference? Liquidity preference is where money demand MD is equal to money supply MS. So once the interest rate is known, then the level of investment can be identified as shown in figure 2. Alongside with consumption and expenditure, we could then determine aggregate expenditure and then the level of nation income. So let's assume that the income level increase, then the people's whole desire to hold more money for nation demand will be increased as well. Hence, Higgs proved that the income level is relying on interest rate through investment, while the interest rate is relying on income level through liquidity preference. So Higgs then suggests a way to solve this uncertainty by then developing a unified economic model that synthesizes the Keynesian and neoclassical perspectives, also known as the ISLM model. So let's talk a little bit about Sir John Higgs' background. Who is Sir John Higgs? His full name is actually John Richard Higgs. He was born on 8 April 1904 at Warwick, England, and passed away on 20th May 1989. He was a British economist. He had furthered his studies at Clifton College and Balliol College. He has been a lecturer at London School of Economic and Political Science, Cambridge, and a professor at University of Manchester. He even managed to publish Mr. Keynes and the Classic suggestion interpretation as I mentioned just now. Lastly, he also managed to win a Nobel Prize as a co-recipient in economic science with Kenneth J. Arrow in 1972 for his pioneering contribution on general equilibrium and welfare theory. So that's all from me. I shall pass it to my partner Lim Cheah Ying to explain more about the ISLM model. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lim Cheah Ying, matric number 261654. Now I will present about the ISLM model. IS curve represents the combination of interest rate and the level of income at which the investment is equal to the saving. It also shows the potential point of equilibrium in the goods market. And the LM curve indicates all the combination of interest rate and the level of income at which the money supply is equal to the money demand. It also shows the potential point of the equilibrium in the money market. IS curve is derived from all these graphs, start from the graph A and proceed clockwise to B, C, and D. Graph A shows the relationship between the interest rate and the investment. So first of all, let's suppose that the interest rate is I1, and as we see from A1, we know that the level of investment will be I1. Graph B is to measure the investment spending. So by directing a line upward from A1 to point B1, we transfer the I1 of the investment from horizontal axis in the graph A to vertical axis in the graph B. Next to the graph C, show the Keynesian savings function. When the income increases, our saving will also increases. So when the I1 is equal to the S1, equilibrium point C1 occurs. And next, draw a vertical line downward from C1 to horizontal axis. Then we will know that the income is equal to Y1. Again, extend the vertical line downwards to graph D. We know the equilibrium point is at point D1, which the income is equal to Y1 and the interest rate is equal to I1. Other points such as D2 are similarly derived, and then connect all the points such as D1 and D2 to form the IS curve. LM curve is similarly derived as the IS curve. Graph A shows the relationship between the interest rate and the amount of money people desire to hold for speculative purpose. When the interest rate decreases, money held for speculative purpose will increase, because we will expect that the interest rate will increase in future and cause the bond price to fall. And hence, we will hold less bond. And vice versa, if the interest rate increase, the money held for speculative purpose will decrease. So let's suppose that the interest rate is at I1, then the LS1 will be the money that people will desire to hold for speculative purpose. Graph B shows the total money supply. When in equilibrium, money supply is equal to the money demand. So extend a line outward from A1 to B1, we get observe the LT1. And again, extend a horizontal line to graph C, point C1 occurs, where the income equal to Y1 and the money needed for transaction purpose is equal to LT1. Next, we draw a line vertically from C1 and extend a line horizontally from A1 to graph D. At equilibrium, point D1 will occur. Other points such as D2 are similarly derived, and the locus of the point constitute the LM curve. Next is the IS-LM equilibrium. IS-LM equilibrium is the combination of IS and LM curve. Equilibrium point is at Y0 and I0 where the LM is equal to IS. Hansen and others demonstrate that it is easy to add government spending and taxation to the IS-LM model and use it to analyze the interest rate and the income effect of alternative fiscal and monetary policy. So for example, government spending is added to the level of investment spending and the taxes are added to the level of saving.
Hello, my name is Mus'ab and my metric number is 261853. The multiplier accelerator interaction. Samuelson found multiplier and accelerator has an interaction and also creation of business cycle theory. Next, Kant developed the notion of multiplier. Keynes used this as a feature of his theory, and John Maurice Clark discussed about this principle. He said that the fluctuation of output and prices of capital goods is greater than consumption goods they produce. We can see first step, the demand for consumer goods continue to grow. The change in the rate of growth transmit back with the increased acceleration to the capital goods sector, and the ending of the growth demand for final goods leads to decline in the demand for capital goods. Let's hasten aware and ask Samuelson to figure out this. Samuelson found that the changing in income is depending on the MPC and accelerator coefficient. When the investment is increased continuous, it produces a variety outcome. So we can see from the interaction between the multiplier and accelerator. When the increase in investment increase in income through the multiplier, and increase in induction investment through accelerator. And lastly, aggregate demand and income also increase. So the interaction between this, which is multiplier and accelerator, have the positive effect. The simple algebra of income determination. What will happen when income increase? It can increase the consumption spending under the consumption function. Second, through the investment function, it also increase the investment. And lastly, when the level of income increase, it also increase the import. We can conclude that the multiplier effect, when is the smaller, it reduce the income, but when the multiplier effect is bigger, it can increase the income. So the national income rises through the multiplier effect, and combination of multiplier and accelerator producing the fluctuation.
My name is Lailawati Binti Zulkifli. My metric number is 262337. Today I would like to explain about Paul Anthony Samuelson, where he was one of the economists that involved with the development of Keynesian school. Paul Anthony Samuelson was born in Gary, Indiana on 15 May 1915 and then died at the age of 94 years old in 2009. For his education, he received Bachelor of Arts from the University of Chicago and then enrolled at the Harvard University for his PhD in the economics program. At Harvard, he was involved with the Keynesian revolution, and Alvin Hansen was one of his professors during at the Harvard. So Paul Anthony Samuelson actually the first person that applied mathematics at the body of economic theory, and the things that we study now, like for example mathematics economics, is Paul Anthony Samuelson is one of the founder. And after graduated, his doctoral dissertation was published as a book and named as The Foundation of Economic Analysis. And then after graduated from Harvard, he started to search university to be a lecturer and continue his research. Unfortunately, even Harvard itself didn't appoint him as a lecturer, even though he was published about 11 articles in economics. So Samuelson took a decision to be a lecturer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, even though during that time MIT didn't well known about the economics and famous about the science and technology. But Samuelson gonna change it. Paul Anthony Samuelson did not call himself as empiricist. He called himself as generalist because he chose to expand the theory rather than to test it. Because of that, it is difficult to place him at any particular school of economics. He could just put himself in the chapter of economics like mathematics economics or welfare economics. And then Paul Anthony Samuelson's contributions can be seen through his books and his economic journals. Samuelson was published numerous good articles in economic journals, and for the books, his famous book like Economics that have been widely used in the economics college. So that's all for Samuelson's biodata.
My name is Nurul Atikah Binti Alias, and my metric number 263045. Today I will present the post-Keynesians. Hassan and Samuelson, they are the mainstream Keynesians. They say that the principles of macroeconomy crafted upon the neoclassical principle of microeconomy become to the neoclassical synthesis. Some of the post-Keynesian economists deny the neoclassical synthesis, both the ISLM interpretations of Keynes and the standard microeconomics. Mikhail Galakis is one of the post-Keynesians that drew heavily on the work of Polish economists had offered a Keynesian light is the theory of the total employment prior to the general theories. The post-Keynesians are a small yet diverse group of economists. Some of the ideas of each individual with this paradigm differ from those expressed by others. Nevertheless, we can discern several basic tenets of this set of ideas have on 5 basic tenets. The first basic tenet is the neo-Ricardian views of productions, value, and distributions. Pierre Safra has published The Production of the Commodities by Means of the Commodities, a prelude to a critical of the economic theory, which reconstructed Ricardo's productions and the value theory in the modern form. This modern form that concludes the pattern of demand for various products does not affect the pattern of the price. Rather, it affects only the scale of output in each industry. Relative value price and the profit, if our wages are given, are determined by the production technique used to produce a composite standard commodities. Basic commodities is the good that enter into the production of all other commodities. They are in essence the capital goods that appear both as input and the outputs. The conclusion of Safra theory. First one is the level of domestic output is entirely independent of how it is distributed between wages and profits. And second one is any distribution of wages and profits is constant with a particular level of outputs. But John Robinson and other post-Keynesians expanded the Safra's unconventional system. They say the actual distribution of income between wages and profits will depend on the class struggle, on a public policy that alters the distributions, and on the rate of investment. Which is the higher rates increase the profit share. Robinson argued that it is desirable and possible for the society to control the distribution of income. This can be done through the socializations of investments, public ownership of the means of productions, or income policies that are the government policy to control wages and price. Robinson believed that these policies are firmly rooted in the proper interpretation of the Keynes book, The General Theory. In this respect, she called herself a left-wing Keynesian because she is the first batch of the left-wing Keynesian that still. The second one of the basic tenet is make-up pricings. Prices are set by the oligopolistic corporations. These funds finance investments largely from the retail profits. To achieve their reasonable levels of the profits and therefore realize their investment plans, oligopolies set price above the current cost. Price therefore do not reflect current demand conditions, rather they reflect the fund requirement for the planned investment expenditure. The fund considers necessarily if it is to adjust its capacity sufficiently to meet the expected future demands. When costs rise, firms increase their price to maintain their make-up over their costs. The third one of the basic tenets is the endless money. Contrary to the view held by Fisher's and Friedman, post-Keynesian read the stock of money as being essentially endogenous to the company, changing in response to change in the levels of wages. The needs of trade dictates the supply of money. Keynes himself pointed out that money comes into existence along with debts. Inflation arises from the fight over the share of the distributions of incomes. When wages increase, cause the production costs to increase, creating a greater demand on the part of the firms for working capital to finance their more expensive goods in progress and inventories. In conclusion, if business borrowing rises and the money sought will increase.
Next, we will have pronounced cyclical instability, where in this situation the economy is inherently unstable, so the investment must grow sufficiently in order to keep the national income and output growing at the steady rate. But this situation rarely happen because they will have the periods of alternating business environment. So we have two business environment, which is the first one is business optimism and the second one is business pessimism. What will happen if investment is growing but lower than a required rate in order to maintain the steady rate? We will have the economy recedes and the unemployment rate will increase. Last major tenets for post-Keynesian is needs for an income policy, where it will always have limitation. As you can see, this is the limitation of income policy. And then we can see that the income policy is success if it can hold down the inflation, it can minimize the redistribution of income, and it can avoid the total loss of output. And then when we talk about income policy, it always related to the conventional policy instrument, which is it referred to the fiscal and monetary policy. But according to the post-Keynesian economists, this CPI cannot use to control the inflation because it not reduce the inflation by excess demands of good, but they reduce the amount of income and output available that later used to reduce to distribution of income, and they will also curtailing the economic activity, and thus it will increase the social conflict during the inflation. So last, according to the post-Keynesian, when income shares happen and oligopolies tend to mark up the price of goods and services, permanent income policy need to be applied. For your information, the post-Keynesians is not included in the mainstream economics, and we call it as heterodox economics. Why? Because post-Keynesian has many weaknesses. For example, when it comes to the economic problem, they tend to take a real world complexity, and also their policy is difficult to implement and do not have agreed economic models. Next, we will look at the new Keynesian rejection, where it rejected the neo-Ricardian values theory and incomes policy by the post-Keynesian. Why? Because of poor historical history, meaning that during the post-Keynesian, the inflation cannot be reduced at all according to their theory. So the new Keynesian are refocusing to traditional Keynesian question, which is why recessions occur. According to the new Keynesians, when the aggregate demand decrease, real output and unemployment will decrease too. So the price, because of the price level and nominal wage are inflexible downward. So now I would like to explain about the downward price and wages inflexibility. As you can see in the slide, is the aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve, where initial equilibrium is at point A when the AD1 intersect with AS1. So if aggregate demand decrease, AD curve will shift to the left from AD1 to AD2, so we get the new price level and the new real output. So when the price level decrease and unemployment increase, the producer tend to increase the nominal wages. So the aggregate supply will shift to the right from AS1 to AS2, and we will get the new equilibrium. However, according to the new Keynesian economists, the economy won't move quickly like this. Actually, when the AD curve shift to the left from AD1 and from AD2, the equilibrium actually will move to point D. As you can see in the graph, you can follow it by refer to the color, and the real output will decrease from Q1 to Q3. So to make it normal again, or to make it back to the Q1, we need active fiscal and monetary policy where it should be implemented to shift AD2 back to AD1. So next, this is the new Keynesian economy. So we have 6 economists that offered several possible explanations for downward price and wage rigidity.
The first possible reason for downward price and wages rigidity is the manual cost. Manual cost is the cost of firm resulting in changing its prices. There must be some firm will incur costs when they lower prices. For example, the firm need to print a new menu or new price list. So when the manual costs are high, firm may be reluctant to lower their prices, even when they face with slack demand. And also for the firm in oligopolistic industry, must be concerned that a unilateral price reduction may set off deeper cuts by rivals. And hence, when the aggregate demand decline, prices may remain fixed at least for a time, while the output and employment will fall. The second possible is the formal and implicit contracts. New Keynesian has pointed out that the union often sign long-term contracts containing built-in nominal wage increase. When aggregate demand decline, the firm will lay off workers. Even when contracts are being renegotiated, the unions typically vigorously resist wage giveback. Union leaders prefer layoff for the few rather than the wage cut for the many. Although many non-union workers do not work under formal or explicit contracts, but these workers may operate under implicit contracts, which are informal agreement or invisible handshake. From this, we know that the firm will maintain existing nominal wage during the period of slack product demand. So, if the formal and implicit contract permit the workplace, decline in wages are not forthcoming as the aggregate demand decline, and the recession will occur, which is the unemployment will increase. That's all from my part. Thank you.
Efficiency wages. Efficiency wages tell us why the firm willing to pay wages more than market wages even decline in aggregate demand happen. The first stage is the purpose of firm make this action is to increase the higher output, raise worker morale and reduce turnover costs. From the action, it can increase labor productivity and decrease cost paid to higher wages. But equivalent for this action is higher pay for value job. Same goes to terminate or leaving worker. So this is reason why firm refuse to cut the wages even though in aggregate demand decline happen, to avoid the increased number of job quit, decrease in productivity and increase per unit labor cost. Insider-outsider theory. Wage stagnant is a situation which is a nominal price is resistant to change. Outsider might enable to reduce existing wage because employee may view the cost of hiring them as being too high. Meanwhile, insider concerned that remaining higher pay worker will view this replacement as the stealing job, and if the higher pay insider refuse to cooperate in the team production with the new lower pay worker, the firm output and profit will suffer due riot, protests and so on. Even if the firm hire outsider a less than existing wage, these people don't want to offer their service. Thus, this may fear harassment from the higher paid employee. so outsider may remain unemployment. In conclusion, we can see Alvin Hesson and Paul Samuelson gave a lot contribution using Keynes approach to the mainstream microeconomic theory. Furthermore, he, with Alvin Hesson, also improved Keynes liquidity known as the ISLM model. Paul Samuelson gave also contributions such as the principle of multiplier and accelerator, efficient market theory, public expenditure theory, and others. However, from this view, we can see the post-Keynesian and the new Keynesian have their own opinion and reject each other's view. Thank you.